Welcome to this explainer. I want you to just take a slow, deep breath with me for a second and really leave the noise of the outside world at the door. Okay? Let's dive in. Today we're exploring the real foundation of financial independence, the 4 micro habits of the quietly wealthy. You know, in our modern culture, we're constantly fed this idea that success has to be broadcasted. But the source material we're looking at today reveals a completely different reality. True wealth, it doesn't scream. It has absolutely nothing to prove. It doesn't need the applause. True wealth is quiet. It's built in the shadows, far away from the public eye, through these tiny, almost invisible daily decisions. So today we're going to decode the micro habits that separate the truly free from those who are, well, just pretending.
The contrast here is actually pretty staggering. On one side, we have loud wealth. And this is the illusion most people are chasing, right? The loud sports cars that are driven just to be noticed. The massive, glaring logos worn as this almost desperate cry for validation. It's just a state of constant, exhausting performance. But now, consider the profound reality of quiet wealth. The quietly wealthy don't spend their precious energy trying to look rich. They spend it building invisible systems. They build their fortunes in the shadows, making these tiny, almost imperceptible daily decisions that compound over decades. They understand that every single time you buy something just to impress a total stranger, like a heavy watch you don't really need or a designer label screaming for attention, you're silently transferring your power over to them.
And that brings us to the first actionable pillar, the 24-hour rule. The quietly wealthy absolutely never buy anything valuable on impulse. Literally never. When that profound desire hits to make a big purchase, they enforce a hard stop. They just wait for 24 hours. They deliberately step back and they allow the intoxicating heat of emotion to completely fade away. Why? So the cold, unyielding clarity of logic can take over. It's a masterful exercise in self-control. They dictate their impulses, they don't let their impulses dictate them.
There's a very deep mindset behind that 24-hour pause. The sources put it like this: $1 saved today is a soldier working for you tomorrow. Just take a second to let the absolute weight of that statement sink in. The quietly wealthy don't look at $1 as just a piece of paper to buy some fleeting pleasure. No, they view every single dollar as a soldier, a lifelong asset. Every dollar you stop yourself from spending on a momentary impulse is instantly deployed onto the battlefield of your financial future. It works for you, day and night, quietly fighting for your ultimate freedom. It earns interest, it buys investments, and it slowly builds the invincible walls of your independence.
All right, let's move into our second section and see how this all builds together. Habit 2, aggressive protection of focus.
So if the 24-hour rule protects your financial capital, this habit protects your mental capital. We live in an era that is just overflowing with digital noise, right? Endless notifications, incredibly cheap entertainment designed specifically to hijack your mind. But the quietly wealthy? Their attention is simply not for sale. They guard their focus with aggressive, uncompromising intensity, and they only invest it in very specific domains. First, high-value education. They're relentlessly sharpening their minds, looking for deep knowledge that compounds over time. Second, deep meditation. They actually carve out time for absolute stillness, clearing the noise so they can maintain pure clarity of thought. And third, building character. They treat their personal integrity not as an afterthought, but as a sacred, non-negotiable daily requirement.
I want you to listen to these words very, very carefully. A broken character can never sustain a massive fortune. It's a heavy, undeniable truth. Look, you might be able to acquire money through a lucky break or sheer aggression, but keeping it, growing it quietly, without the reinforced steel of a deeply cultivated character, the immense pressure and weight of a massive fortune will inevitably crush you from the inside out. Character is the invisible foundation that quiet wealth rests on.
And to build that character, they use our third micro-habit, strategic solitude. Most of society is absolutely terrified of being alone. They run from it, they numb themselves with screens and noise, and they call it loneliness. But the quietly wealthy reframe this entirely. They don't fear the quiet hours, they leverage them as a highly strategic tool. They use this intentional solitude, usually in the quiet of the night, to ruthlessly audit their lives. They sit down in the stillness, look honestly at their bank statements, they review their daily interactions, and they rigorously check their financial systems. And most importantly, they use this time to make sure every single action they take is in perfect, quiet alignment with a higher purpose.
Which brings us to the final pillar of the wealthy mind. Habit 4, delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification is really the invisible thread that binds all these other habits together.
Without it, the 24-hour rule just crumbles into making excuses, focus gets stolen by the next shiny object, and solitude just becomes this unbearable reminder of a lack of discipline. Every single day, with almost every decision you make, you're presented with a psychological battle. Comfort today versus freedom tomorrow. The quietly wealthy consistently, silently, and ruthlessly choose freedom. They completely reject the fleeting, hollow comfort of today, and they choose instead to endure the necessary discipline required to guarantee their absolute, unshakable freedom tomorrow. Which leads us to a fundamental redefinition of the goal itself. You see, wealth isn't about how much you show to the world. It's entirely about how much control you have over your own life. Having total, uncompromised control over your time, your decisions, and your ultimate destiny, that is the only real metric of true wealth. The very second you feel the need to prove your wealth to someone else, you've already surrendered a piece of that control.
So how do you apply this to your own life? Consider this your quiet framework, drawn directly from the source material. Step 1. Elevate your mind. Step deliberately out of the digital noise. Step 2. Protect your integrity. Guard your character as if your future depends on it. Because, well, it absolutely does. And step 3. Let the results speak. Stop announcing your plans to a world that isn't even listening. Start building these invisible, quiet habits today, right now, in the shadows.
I'm going to leave you with this one lingering, provocative thought to take into the silence. Are you building an audience, or are you building your freedom? Consider the immense weight of that question very carefully. Examine your daily choices. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Choose the quiet path.